are living in a world with up-to-the-minute communication where we can stay in touch 24/7 and share personal experiences. And with all of this, you would think that we'd be raising a new generation of compassionate and empathetic people. Not so fast. There's a new study out of the University of Michigan suggesting that is not the case at all, and that being connected isn't the same thing as actually caring. So is this a glimpse of all of our futures? Sarah Conrath is the lead author on this study and an assistant professor at the University of Michigan, and joining us now to talk about this. You know, the headline from your research is that students today, while constantly aware of their friends and updates, are 40% less empathetic than they were back in 1979, and that's the biggest decline that we've seen in a decade. So explain to all of us the rationale behind this.
Well, I can first explain what we did is we tracked students' empathy scores from 1979 till now, and we found that especially after 2000 there's a really sharp decline. And it's two different kinds of empathy. It's a more emotional one where you feel what other people are feeling, but it's also a more kind of cognitive one where you think about what another person might be feeling. Either way, there's a major decline. Of course, the question is why, and right now we can't really answer that. We have some ideas, but we don't know for sure.
Sarah, the real issue, though, is what happens when these kids grow up and get into their true adult lives and in working situations. Can you learn to be more empathetic, or is it something that's going to be that you work on through your life as you're growing up as a kid?
Well, I think that's a really important question because empathy right now is seen by psychologists as a trait, which means it's relatively stable and not too changeable. But there are parts of it that I think are actually changeable. And I think people can learn to develop empathy if they work at it. And I think of it, my analogy is like going to the gym, working out. It's hard work, but if you take time and you actually try to become more empathetic and you care about it, then you can become more empathetic.
So we have to think of it like a muscle. Interestingly, you link the lack of empathy with the rise of narcissism. So how do you connect the two in young people today?
Well, the two are linked. At the same time that empathy is declining, we're finding rises in narcissism. And usually people who are high in narcissism are low in empathy. So they think about themselves a lot, and because they're so obsessed with themselves, they have trouble thinking of what other people might be thinking and feeling.
Now, do we know what might be shaping the children that were born in the 80s and the 90s that would give such rise to this? I mean, is it basically just technology in itself, or is it the fact that maybe we have all been, kids of divorce or family situations that we're not learning properly how to be empathetic to each other?
Right. Well, we don't know exactly why, but our best guesses are, the changes in technology could be influencing their changes in empathy and narcissism, but it also could be that that's just a coincidence, or that they're maybe using these types of technology to compensate for the fact that they don't have the same connections as they used to have. There have been smaller family sizes, so there are now a lot more only children, and I think within the family context you kind of have no choice but to learn how to take other people's perspectives, especially if there are other children around. So that could be something. And also I think now there are increasing pressures for success and economic concerns. A college degree isn't necessarily going to get students as far as it would have several years ago.
All right, so but the takeaway, Sarah, I mean, we know this is happening. We can't define exactly why, but from your position and for parents out there that are watching this, what would be your advice to them out of this study? I mean, how would you treat your own children out of this study? What would you do differently?
Well, I think that's a very good question, and it's something I think about every day with my own child. But I think parents can have some sort of an influence. We can make sure that we limit screen time just in case that is a cause, and have more face-to-face time with kids, make sure they're exposed to a lot of other kids so they can learn these skills, these sharing, helping, caring skills. And also we can, I wouldn't say even telling them to be more empathetic. I think we can show them, we can try our best to set a good example in our lives. And this is a perfect time because it's the holiday season's coming up, and we can start living that way hopefully this year.
Well, we have to start thinking about this because it's these kids, our kids, our nieces, our nephews, they're going to be picking out our nursing homes, and I want a nice one. So I want them to be empathetic toward me as I get older. Sarah Conrath, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for inviting me.